DNA, I would argue. And so what is often classified as a racial component or a class component is antithetical to the foundation of the country. Is we came here to build something that was literally an opportunity. Now, when you say that, of course, there are people, start with the Native Americans, who were disenfranchised along the way. So that vision of opportunity has continued to grow. And now we've reached another critical mass point in our nation's history where is the line of expansion in terms of immigration, in terms of tolerance, in terms of welcoming, in terms of welfare sustainability? Where are the lines? So talking about that more in the symbolic 250 plus year arc of the country.
So transcending the divide and conquer.
Yes.
Jamming.
Absolutely. And it's amazing how when you talk to, and I would encourage anyone to have these discussions with themselves, when you talk about what America really means to them, there's a lot of love left in people's hearts for this country. That surprised me because the general feeling is we're a nation in decline and we're about to go boom. You talk to some people and they don't think that. They think this is just another bump in the road.
The reason we're in decline is the robber barons admit they want a monopoly. They want to end prosperity. They want to end an expanding pie because they want central control, and they're scapegoating capitalism for what they're really running, crony capitalism.
Right.
And they talk about the bad things in America's past. Well, yeah, but you compare it to other systems. We had the most opportunity. We were the most rebellious. We were the most trailblazing. It didn't mean it was great, but compared to everything else, it was wonderful. Where you were born into your caste in Italy or in Japan or in China or in Germany or wherever you came from or Brazil, you had to get here where you could get out of the caste and really show who you were. I mean, let's take music. If you weren't from a rich, powerful family 200 years ago, 300 years ago in Europe, didn't matter how good you were, you weren't going to get to write music and ever have it heard.
I would still argue that we are that country. It's so, and this is something you and I talk about. I think that you're fantastic. You often use the analogy of being the bomber over the target. Okay, so you're looking down. You see things people don't see from that vantage point, and you've invested a lot in understanding how to read those things. Your military sources, your political sources, the Roger Stones, they can give you that bird's eye read, just like I can give you the bird's eye read of culture, right?
Or Inside MTV.
You name it. I mean, been there, done that. So, and what I would say is, and where we can be helpful, I think, is when you talk about pan-national corporations, if you're in the tech world right now, your sandbox is the whole world. You're not stopping at somebody's border. And this is why even starting 5-7 years ago, you started seeing those tech companies start cutting deals with communists and fascists and whatever type of governments, censoring, being willing to do whatever, because that's their playing field. Now they'll sit there and wink and say, we're going to democratize the world. I think most people, and particularly your audience, know that's a bunch of BS. This is capitalism at its raw power best. You can play it however you want. You can see however you want. It's who's got a bigger gun, who's got more cojones at the table.
Well, that's right. The globalists use capitalism when it expands their power, but then at the grassroots they want communism, just like Obama said in Argentina. He said, multinationally we're going to have capitalism, locally we're going to have communism.
I mean, when you have the President of the United States telling people in another country, use whatever political system works, I mean, that was a laughable moment.
You sent me a couple articles dealing with this, how President Obama is, quote, scared of Google.
Well, there was an article, I think you guys maybe even ran it the other day, about a movie producer, a gentleman who was Expendables 3, and he basically has come out and said, why is the Obama government, which is a liberal government, very in bed with Hollywood, why are they not going after the systems that help exploit movies and disenfranchise people who've invested a lot of money to make the movies, not to mention the crews and everything and all the unions involved? Why are they not protecting those people? Because the tech companies look the other way on the illegal downloading of materials. We have the technology right now to stop the transfer of illegal music or pirated music and pirated movies. They could do that tomorrow. Why don't they do it?
Because they put a code in it and the device has the code, it either lets it or not.
I'll tell you a quick funny story. I've uploaded my own songs to something, and it'll be deleted because I don't have the right to do it, because they have some automatic system that identifies the song and takes it down. I can't even put up my own music. Now, if they have systems in play to shut down my own music and there's not a system there to identify that it's my music to use, you think they can't stop somebody from, I mean, yeah, some kid in the dark web can find it, but most users are not sophisticated tech users. They press a button, it works or it doesn't.
I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm skipping this one network break so we get more time with Billy here today. I know that causes them headaches, but we're going to skip this network break right now. For some stations out there, most stations do end up carrying all, because this is a network break. Billy Corgan is our guest. We've got the website Smashing Pumpkins, Nexus.com. Thematically, though, let's put this out there. I mean, repeating what you said in the 5 minutes we talked before we went on air, you talked about, I said, why are you here? Well, like you talk about, we want to break the trance. How do we talk to people that are in the trance? And you're basically saying, transcend all the current labels and things. Talk about ancestors. Talk about larger themes of humanity and destiny. Let's get into where you think the world is at this current place and where you think we're going, and how do we transcend the scientific admitted mind war that the big corporations and governments admit they're using.
Perfect. Okay, let's start here. When somebody's lying to you, they have two choices when you call them out on the lie. They either lie more or they admit it, and then you deal with the damage from there. So what you've done, and many other people have done, and of course you talk to people in the entertainment community who are usually pretty awake because they're inside these systems. We're at the point now where either the lie is going to be triple, quadruple, double, whatever down on, or it's going to break and we're going to deal with the fallout here. And the election has now become the critical mass point.
The catalyst.
When you see the forces at play, I'll use your term, uncloaking. I mean, brazen robbing of people's ability to cast their vote in a primary. When you see brazen disregard of polls, when you see AP thing that came out yesterday, 6% trust in the media.
Exactly. Let me show that.
What business model in the world would take a 6% approval rating and keep doing the same thing that they're doing? I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, what restaurant would stay open with a 6% approval rating?
Right. So what does that tell you? That says that they're not there to give you the truth. They are there as a propaganda arm of a much bigger force. Is it the U.S. government? Is it some big tech company? Who knows? Doesn't matter.
And they're a facade that's already collapsed. They just can't admit it because that would be to admit defeat.
That's what I'm saying. The minute they admit the lie, it all crumbles. So they have to keep just doubling down like a bad gambler who thinks, if I can just hit this one bet, I'm going to win all my money.
So what was the term you used before we went live? Because it really crystallized it. You said, I mean, it was more than it's coming to a head, it's peaking, or?
Well, look, the Republican convention is in 90 days. And that is the zeitgeist moment. That's the zeitgeist.
Everybody's got to be there.
I don't know, because listen, we live in a digital construct as much, which is why I think you were so pressing in calling this the info war. Yes, I mean boots on the ground in the literal sense of the word.
How dare you touch that microphone? Slap it around if you want.
Boots on the ground.
Corgan abuses electronics. That's sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I believe in political dissent when it's focused on real objectives, right? If you feel like you need to be there to let the world know that you care about something and you want to peacefully be involved in the process, I have no problem with that. But let's go back to what I think is the more salient point. Most people, especially listeners to this program, are conversant in the themes that you deal with daily: the mind control, the propagandizing, the willingness for governments who are supposed to be our elected representatives to literally disregard poll after poll after poll that says they want this and that.
And they've now reached that point where it's a total wall of lies. And they're busy buying armored vehicles and building command bunkers. I mean, like they know it's all going down.
Yeah. So if you're on the side of the fence that we're obviously on, which is this is all very transparent to us, and you accept that probably 25 to 35% of the population is either asleep or doesn't want to be woken up. So what can you say to the people who are awake, are engaged, and wonder what they can do? I think that's the more salient point, and I think that's more helpful. Because so I'll start with something that I tell people when I talk to every day I meet with fans before the show, and they often ask me, like, what can I do? You have to stop clicking on things. You have to there's the
stop feeding the propaganda media.
Right. Okay. There's the old saying, vote with your feet. Okay. What did that mean?
Vote with your dollars. Vote with your time.
Yes. So when you click on something that you think is free, it is not free. You are in essence disenfranchising your own power by giving somebody else power because they want you to click on that stupid thing because it actually means something. Now that system, as the article came out the other day about BuzzFeed kind of hitting the wall, we're seeing now the fatigue of the clickbait society. You know, I mean, I'm somebody who they make headlines out of the most stupid stuff. It's unbelievable. They literally will troll everything I will say, and they make headlines. And I say to people all the time, why do you think they're making headlines? They're using me as a character.
I wish you'd tell people, because I know you're a really private guy, some of the inside baseball you told me, because I've talked to so many other big rock stars from the early 90s, mid-90s, when you all get called in, they tell you the new direction, you and a few others say, hell no, and then suddenly they won't play you. I mean, it literally comes down to that level of control with people that won't sell out to the system. Now, that's why I know that George Clooney and all these other people actually know what's going on. Leonardo DiCaprio, they get up there and say what they're supposed to, or they are blackballed. I mean,
let's look at it from a slightly empathetic point of view. And I'm not here to say anything about it.
Oh, I'm not bashing them either. They're slaves. You're not a slave. You stood up for and been. You are one of the few that's continue to be successful, though, despite their support. But I mean, just the last 20 years on air, they just constantly attack you randomly for nothing because they're scared of you.
I don't think it's that. I wouldn't go to that level because I don't think that people are that sentient and conscious.
Well, I mean, the minions don't know. They just know they're green lighted to attack you.
They're part of a system. It's like nobody wants to admit that they're dumb. Okay? Nobody wants to admit they're dumb. Who wants to say, yeah, I'm dumb? Okay? Most people in the media do not see themselves as part of some bigger cabal. They you know, you call them the trendies. They like to feel they're part of a cool.
They're just camp followers. They're just into this cynical, mean attitude.
Right. Look, I had an instance the other day. I haven't talked about this yet. I was in New York. I was playing some shows, and I looked at the table over, and there was Michelle Fields, the young woman who is the whole thing with Corey Lewandowski in the Trump campaign, and she was sitting there with her boyfriend, and I recognized her. Now, it's hard not to stare at somebody when they're in the zeitgeist. I mean, this woman, at that point, whatever it was a week ago, that was when that whole thing was peaking. Is Lewandowski going to be indicted? When you look at an actual human being, you know what I'm saying?
You humanize them.
Yes. She's not a symbol. She's a young woman sitting there, you know. She is who she is. I don't know her. I don't, you know, it's not my moment to judge. It's my moment to look and say, there's a real person who has a real belief. I don't think that's somebody who's walking around feeling, at least this is my own intuition, that they're part of something. Some master plan. I don't think it's that sophisticated. They like to go with a particular flow.
Sure, she's a drama queen. She wants to be successful. So he does grab her, so she escalates it and goes along with the hype. She jumps in the river.
Yes, the opportunity exists to be rewarded for something, and they don't realize that they're actually sacrificing themselves at a sort of more satanic altar, if that is, you know, just to be a bit dramatic about it. In essence, you don't realize that your participation in a particular way. So if you talk,
it's just like clicking.
Yes, if you talk to the individual, okay, let's take the most empathetic point of view. This young woman felt in her heart's heart, that she was assaulted. Okay, let's take that as complete truth. The minute she crossed into certain territories, she becomes somebody else's pawn. I doubt you could sit her here and she would tell you she's a pawn. At some point, I woke up and realized that I was a pawn. And so my natural human instinct was, I don't want to be anybody's bitch here. I don't want to be a pawn, excuse my French. I don't want to participate in something that I know will ultimately hurt my children and their children.
You want to be conscious, free will, not a robot.
So the point is, can you exist truthfully in a system that is set up to disenfranchise you and disempower you at every conceivable level? So let's take the soccer mom. She gets up in the morning, she drops the kids off, she comes home, she puts on her iPad, and she's clicking through, and here's Apple's sorting all her news. So she's already one layer in, is already under control. Now, does that mom think she's being controlled? Of course not.
No. What she reads is already being given to her by the New York Times or Apple. She's already being brought into a world, and she doesn't even know it.
Right. I have friends who all they do is scroll Apple News. Okay. They have no idea that there's sources like you and other people who can give them a different perspective, nor are they curious. Okay. And so I love it. I get these people, my friends, you know, they're in my home, and they start spouting literal talking points from the Clinton.
I've had them. I've had liberal family who aren't liberal, you know, they're more just kind of modern, trendy or whatever, over, and they see me on my big iPad Pro or whatever. They're like, oh, iPad Pro. And I'm like looking at the New York Times and Apple News and Google News. They go, you read the New York Times? We thought you were right. Like suddenly I was this intellectual. And I went, I try to look at everything. This is all sorted to different psychology types.